My speech today will not be about IPTV, since we have been invited to the panel which we had this morning, which was about IPTV, which was about triple play. We decided for once to change a little bit and not to speak to you about IPTV, how nice it is, or how good cable is, or how good all these things, because I think we will have other opportunities during this speech. We wanted to be a little bit different and to speak about Luxembourg, to speak to you about one trend we see currently happening, which we would like to share with you. But before I go into the meat of this presentation, let me just show you where is Luxembourg. Because actually we have here people from, I've seen in the first chart that you showed, Simon or somebody else from the organization, that we had at least 50% of people coming outside of Europe. So first of all, Luxembourg is small and beautiful. As I told you this morning, I will now make some geography for those not familiar where it is. Luxembourg is a very small country in the heart of Europe, bordered by Belgium, France and Germany. First of all, I want to make something very clear. It is a country. It is not a German city, as we sometimes hear it. It is not a Belgian province. It is not linked to France, although Napoleon III wanted to buy it. In 1860 something, he wanted to buy it for 5 million French gold francs, francs or at that time. But it's a country with its own government, its own regulations, etc. It's about 1,000 square miles, 2,500 square kilometers, and to give you an idea, the longest length is about 80 kilometers. So small but very beautiful. 500,000 people, so not very much, but nice people. As you can see, it's really an honor to have two Luxembourgers today speaking, and you see that they're nice. Huh? One particularity, 42% of residents are foreigners. So we are really multi-culti in Luxembourg. We don't have problems with immigration. The fact is the country is very, very stable with that share of foreigners. Another particularity, Luxembourg is so small, but there are so many companies, banks you could say, but also other companies, big companies, that we are happy, Luxembourg is happy to have workforce coming from France, Belgium and Germany commuting every day into the country to come to work. So half of the workforce comes from these three countries, with a lot of nationalities, of course. One word about PNT. I don't know whether it was Michel. Michel is no longer there for Telefonica. He was saying, I work for Telefonica, so I have to speak about Telefonica. For those who don't know the company I'm working for, and because we mentioned it already this morning, so I will go very quickly about the company. We are, yeah, it's always tricky to say leading, but for the regulator, I hope nobody is from the regulator here. PNT is the leading operator in Luxembourg. We are backed by the state, so the state is one shareholder. Turnover about €500 million. We're the fourth employer of the country. Because we are here talking about TV, I had to mention that we have also IPTV. We have more than 200 channels. For such a small country, it's hard to believe, but we have it because of the multiculti aspect of the country. We have 40 German channels, 25 French channels, 5 Spanish channels, 5 Italian channels, etc. We have been awarded the best telecom services for 2 years in a row since it was invented in Luxembourg, and that's true. And it's not a joke. And this was done by our peers. And this evening, so if you see me at the dinner, I will know it. This evening is the 3rd time where they give the prizes. So ask me if we got for the 3rd time in a row the best telecom services award. We have also been, with one of our subsidiaries, we have been awarded the best data center operator in Europe award. Voilà. And this was this year from Broad Group. It was in London. I was very proud that a Luxembourgish data center got this prize. So now, more seriously, what do we see? That's the trend I wanted to mention. We saw already in the past that Luxembourg was a good ground for media companies. No wonder that you see on this panel about digital TV in London, 2 companies, SES and PNT, sponsoring the event. I mean, I think it's the only country which has 2, no? Or maybe there are others, I don't know. But looking at the size of the country, it's remarkable. So why do they choose Luxembourg? I will come to a second. But first of all, we see as PNT more and more companies knocking to our doors with concrete needs in terms of uplink, but also data centers. And I will tell you about these companies and share with you this trend we see. So obviously, we had since a long time for RTL and since more than 20 years now for SES, a presence of big media companies in Luxembourg. But since the last years, we have seen other companies really either establishing completely their presence in Luxembourg, like Skype, who is based in Luxembourg, headquarters in Luxembourg, when it was incepted. Tigo, which is the new name of Millicom, doing a telecom company. Vodafone is also based there. Jaja, it's also about telecommunications. Intune and eBay, bit more dodgy. Why have they chosen Luxembourg? But also some streaming companies. More and more companies about streaming are coming to Luxembourg. And I was saying to Mr. Zatou, not Mr. Zatou, but my predecessor Michel mentioned Mr. Zatou, that of course Luxembourg could be a fertile ground for other streaming operations. These companies, look at the last name. The last name is Future Entertainment. It's a new company, which is a Virgin Media company. So Virgin Media decided to put one structure in Luxembourg to develop uplink, encoding, playout, and they decided this. Funny. Other companies, Real has now been in Luxembourg. Rovi, it's the new name of Macrovision, for those who don't know it, Luxembourg. Lux TV, that's a TV channel. B2, that's a kind of meeting. So this is just an extract. I didn't want to make the slide too crowded. But these companies have now decided to, not to delocalize, but to make a new step in their development in Luxembourg. Why? That could be the question. That's what I'm trying to answer. So, first thing is, it could be because of the nice scenery we have in Luxembourg. I mean, I don't have satellites, sorry for Mr. Bausch. That's one of the nicest places in Luxembourg. Well, one of them. There are many nicest places, but because of this, or because they like the old city. Honestly, it's not the case. Well, they like it, of course, but that's not the main reason. The main reasons, we think, are a few elements. The first one is that Luxembourg, although it is small, is really stable. Stability. You never hear about strikes. I mean, I think my company is now 167 years old, and I think the last strike was during the war because they were not happy about the occupation or something like this. I mean, voilà. So very stable. I'm not saying there will never be any strikes, but you hardly hear about this. Flexibility. We are small. Last week we were with some consultants who were saying that 1 month in Luxembourg sometimes means 1 year in a different country. And this is true. We are because we are small, we can react quickly. Quick access to authorities. It is very common in Luxembourg to have directly a speech with the Minister of Telecommunications, of infrastructure, of anything. Very, very small. These guys are very accessible. Even myself, I had the privilege to have the chance, the privilege, the honor to make 2 presentations in front of our Grand Duke. You see, little Luc Welter. And I didn't ask anything. I was designated to make a speech, 3 times even. Skilled and multicultural workforce. It's true. When you have 42% of different nationalities, they bring their languages, their skills, their richness. Safety. First, Luxembourg city was recognized the first personal safety and security city among, I don't know how many cities, but it was a big number. Third, among 150 countries for the lowest ICT tariffs from the ITU. 7 most advanced ICT economy among 154, and first among 28 countries for share of ICT using occupations in the total economy. It is true, we have a lot about ICT, a lot about, when I attend the IT forums in Luxembourg, it's crowded with, I mean, for Luxembourg, 500-600 people, easy. That was one thing. Now the infrastructures. Infrastructures have really developed, especially in the last years. I mean, if you take the situation 10 years ago, it was much more difficult, especially the terrestrial infrastructure. We already had satellites, but the terrestrial infrastructures were not as good as they are now. Now we have international fiber connection, like you would say, like any country, yes. But here the speeds are 3.5 terabits per second, which you could say you can have in other countries as well. For Luxembourg, it's really already not bad. Roman was talking about satellite and satellite capacity. This is just point to point, so nothing comparable. But to give you an image, Astra 3B, on which I've worked before leaving Astra, has a capacity of around 3.5 gigabit per second. This is 1,000 times bigger. But the comparison starts there because it's just between 2 POPs. So the capacity is there. The networks are there, relying 15 POPs in the major European, well, not the major, surrounding, I would say, the major European capitals surrounding Luxembourg. All links are redundant. And this morning I asked our engineers how far was London to Luxembourg on fiber. He answered me, the single way is 12 milliseconds. So what does it mean? It means that the customers who are coming to Luxembourg to lease a data center are 12 milliseconds from the server as if they were in London or in Paris. And you can count the double for the way to go and the way to come back. And that's really what that kind of infrastructures allows them to do. They are nearly as if the server was next to them. Power supply, that's another thing. We are dealing a lot with data centers. For our own activities, for these POPs, each time we have to lease space, we are confronted with the problem of power. Luxembourg is a small country, it's not an island. Well, for once it has also some advantages to have no sea. But we are surrounded by three big countries. Germany, France at least, two big ones, and Belgium. And we get power from these three. We have a nuclear power. I know this name is sometimes a bit, I don't know what's the situation here in UK about the name nuclear, but nowadays in France or in Luxembourg, it's taken more as a greener electricity production. And so these power plants can supply power without problem. We don't have power problems. Small Luxembourg, 10 data centers. I haven't added up the square meters, but I'm nearly sure that we have per capita the highest number of data center square meters in Europe. Just to give you one number, Michel is not there to confirm, but the available data center space now in Luxembourg is similar to the available data center space in a country like Spain, which is 80 times bigger. Just to give you a little feel about it. We have Tier 2 to Tier 4. Tier 4 is the highest you can have. Everything is redundant. The electricity, each room has got its two, how could I say this? Its two cooling systems. I mean, the building is really cut in two, and you can really scratch half a building. Up to 30 kilowatts for those, that's just one number for those who know what it means. 30 kilowatts per rack, it's really high. It's the high density capability. 3 more data centers in construction, of which one will be very close to SES on the Badstorf location. You see already the idea behind it. And we have 2 main satellite uplinks, one of course at Badstorf at ES premises, but also one with PNT Luxembourg. So that was it. And now probably, I've forgotten to mention it when I said why are they coming. You probably all thought about the taxes. You have seen I've not spoken about the taxes until now, but I have to say one word about it, because you can probably all think when looking at the space, the tax paradise, that's why they're coming. It's not a paradise, and I will explain why. First, the good news. It's true that on TV and radio broadcasting, Luxembourg has the super reduced rate, like France, like Belgium have it in the VAT package that was signed by EU. But it's true that the one of Luxembourg is the lowest. The others are around 6%. We are at 3%. For the rest, it's 15% VAT on all the income, on all the products you sell. Individual IU private individuals for movies, ringtones, etc., images, games, whatever you want. Now, here comes the fact that it is not a paradise. You still pay nearly 30% taxes on your income. So if name me a paradise which has 30% does not exist, it's not a paradise. But it is true that normally the base on which the tax is applied can be reduced compared to different countries. If you liquidate your company, there are no withholding taxes. I'm going quickly on this one, because we don't want you to liquidate your company, of course. We have also treaties, double treaties to avoid the double imposition with 54 countries. If it is more favorable to take a EU directive, I'm also not entering into the details, but we also are part of the EU. Luxembourg was one of the first 6 members of the EU. And really, the tax officers are business-minded, so they provide you guidance, they tell you what you can expect, what you cannot expect. So well, that's about taxes. It's one thing, but I want to make it very clear here. The companies we are talking to who are coming to Luxembourg would never come if this was the only advantage. What are they looking for? I'm nearly through. Introduction to local authorities, because we are so small, of course it's easy to help. Redundant fiber and international connectivities. Satellite uplinks. There are really companies who have now decided to put their uplink in Luxembourg. Playout facilities, of course. Data centers. Available space, that's very key. Try in one of the data centers in London to find a lot of space. It's really a problem for those who are confronted with it. Office space, that's another thing. Office space is also, where can I find office space? Plenty. Hosted telephony, that's another thing. Luxembourg has developed since 2 years really a complete set of hosted services. Hosted telephony, hosted servers, hosted storage, hosted mail. Which means that the companies which are moving to Luxembourg do even not need to invest in all these things. You enter into an office, you lease it from PNT or from anybody else. We plug you a big pipe of broadband connectivity, and from there you can have access to, I would say, PBX, for those who know this, the central telephony of a company, which is not in your company, which you don't have to buy, but which is in the PNT premises. And more of that, they want space for growth. That's really what they're looking for. And although the country is small, for that kind of things, not only the government, but all the companies active like SES are pushing to give space for growth. Just one thing, and then I will stop talking about PNT. PNT can offer you all these solutions, including the office space. Conclusions. We see clearly that media companies, and I would say since the last 6 to 8 months, we see even more companies knocking on our doors. There are names which I could not name now because we are still in the process of negotiations, but new companies will enter Luxembourg. There will be, if I was there next year, there will be more logos on the slide. All types of companies, so not only TV channels, not only traditional digital pay TV packages, a lot of streaming thing, which need the data centers, which need broadband, which need really low latency, which we have, VOD, businesses, e-commerce, telecom. I think I've tried to show you that Luxembourg tried to do its best to do its homework on the stability, on the fundamentals, of course, but also on the infrastructure, on the media interference, on the media environment, and on the tax background. One clear trend, although we are here talking about digital TV and the forum is named like this, more and more companies we are talking to are not only looking about just the TV bit. They all want to complement it with interactivity. What we have seen this morning with Michel from Telefonica, where you watch something on the TV and you have a second screen on your iPhone. And from there, you scroll through the VOD catalog instead of having to use the remote control. These things need to be hosted. And that's the kind of questions, the kinds of demands that we get. VOD, of course, a lot of people who want a lot of companies who want to address, not Luxembourg. All these companies do not come to Luxembourg just for the 180,000 homes, but they come to address, of course, Europe. We have a provider which sells VOD in Germany and in France, because Luxembourg is just in the middle and the latency is excellent and the infrastructure is there. So, in summary, we believe Luxembourg is the right choice to develop your business. And I think this concludes my presentation. I just wanted to say you one last word. We have a little stand just behind this wall. So if you want to have a chat, if you have questions, one-to-one, no problem. I'm here with my colleague Michael. We can also answer your question regarding tax, which is always a bit more tricky. And just for information, we on the 8th of December we organized in Luxembourg a little workshop within PNT about telecom solutions for TV players. If you want to get an invitation, you're all of course invited. We have them also at our little stand between brackets, the table behind. That's our uplink, by the way, at Clochetor. Thank you very much indeed. When you go to little school, you speak Luxembourgish in the kindergarten. When you go to primary school, the first language you learn, and the teaching is done in this language, it is German, Hochdeutsch. In the second class of primary school, it's French, also on top of German. And then you learn English, well, my English is probably not perfect. You learn English when you are coming into the second class, so when you are 11. So normally when you are 18, a normal Luxembourger speaks 4 languages, and we have not the advantage, but the situation is like that in Luxembourg we have 16% Portuguese people. Funnily enough, 16%, a lot. No problem at all with them. And they speak, of course, Portuguese on top of these 4. And so the people we hire in our shop speak normally 5 languages, on our call centers as well. And with the business customers, of course, a lot is done in English, but if the customer speaks German, there's auch kein Problem. French, c'est pas un souci, etc.
Very impressive. Okay. Any questions from the floor? I'm afraid my usual timekeeping has been appalling. We're running a bit behind time. Anyone got any questions for him? Okay. Well, let's take this opportunity to thank Luc again for his presentation.
No problem. Thank you very much.